guys, and welcome to another episode of the Welsh Bee Show. And joining me today is Welsh football expert extraordinaire, Tommy Lewis. And we're going to be talking about the latest Wrexham news, including today's fixtures that have been released. Tommy, thank you for joining me.
Hey, it's great to be here, mate. Thank you very much. I'm not an expert in anything, mate. To be honest, even if I went on Mastermind and my specialist subject was me, I'd probably get 0 points. So I'm not an expert in anything, mate.
We're all just cracking on and we're all blagging it, aren't we, somehow?
It's the only way. It's the only way, pal.
Yeah, great to have you on. We've tried to make this happen a few times. It was a hard slog, wasn't it? Didn't quite get going, but you're here now. Cheers for this. The fixtures for the championship were released today. Wrexham away to Southampton in the first game. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I mean, to be honest, looking at the fixtures, the fixtures over the season, mate. Some of the names there, you have to pinch yourself, don't you? I mean, some of the names, whoever it would have been first game would have been amazing. Southampton away, it's a long trip. I never thought I'd say this, but I've been looking at flights. I never thought I'd think, flying anywhere before, but yeah, no, it's a great one. It's a shame it's an early kickoff. But you know what? Let's count our blessings. We're playing Southampton away 4 years ago, mate. We wouldn't have thought it, would we?
No, of course not. When you're down Dorking and Weymouth and Eastleigh's down there, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, funny you say that. I think my first away trip, or our first away trip, under Parky it wasn't. It was Solihull first game, wasn't it? But I think the second one was Eastleigh. I remember, that was a hell of a journey. But I tell you something, mate, there'd be more of a buzz going down to Southampton than going to Eastleigh.
Well, I actually wanted Southampton at home for the first game. That was my dream, because for me, they're the biggest team in the league, the biggest club, I think. You think of them as an established Premier League team. You're freezing a bit there, Tommy. Oh, you're back with us. You're back.
I'm so sorry, mate. I just lost it. My Wi-Fi dipped out there, and I'm so sorry, mate. We should be all right now.
Stop moving. Just stay still. Stay very still. It's like your TV's in the aerial.
Listen, it's the ADHD, mate. I can't sit still. I just can't do it, I'm afraid. No, I'm going to stay still now. We're going to be all good.
It's excitement, isn't it? Talking about Southampton. It's got you all excited.
That's what it is, mate. I'm shaking. As they said on Phoenix Nights, I'm shaking like a shitting dog here, mate. No, I tell you, in terms of your opening day, like you say, going down to Dorking back in the day, and you do have to pinch yourself. It's only just over 2 years since that Boreham Wood game. How incredible is that, mate? Two and a bit years since that Boreham Wood game at the end of the season. And look at us now, incredible.
Yeah, and how do you think we're gonna do? Realistically, what are you hoping for?
Well, I've got to sort of readjust. I've heard of a couple of people close to the club, which shouldn't come as any sort of surprise. We are going to splash the cash a little bit this summer. We obviously, the Allen family have been very generous with their input so far financially. To me, I just said something on Twitter just then, Carl. I said, it's muscle memory. You expect the worst with Wrexham, but we live in different times now. I think we've got to be looking at maybe even a top half finish, mate. I mean, some people are saying playoffs. I can't bring myself to predict playoffs. I just can't do it. To me, if we finish 12th this season, I'd be over the moon. I tell you, my big hope, though, my big realistic hope for the season is to cement our place as number one in Wales, like we were when I first started supporting the Reds in the 90s.
Well, that could happen. It is a shame that Cardiff went down. I think it would be nice to have the three of us in there.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I've got a lot of Swansea fans as mates. I've got a lot of Cardiff fans as mates. Haven't got any Newport fans. I'm glad to get rid of them. Don't like them. But I am gutted. I am gutted that we're not playing. we're not playing Cardiff this year. But I tell you something, that game against Swansea, and you can tell that Swansea are excited as well. Swansea are posting on all their social media today, Welsh Derby, the 2 dates. They're more excited about it than we are. So, I think that's big volumes.
December the 20th away.
Yeah.
And then March the 14th for home.
Yeah, I seem to remember we played Newport on December the 20th and we beat them at home. I'm pretty sure last year. So hopefully that bodes well for Welsh derbies for us. But that's, to be honest, as a proud Welshman, mate, I think that was the one that jumped out for me. Of all the big names, it probably was Swansea that I was really looking forward to. I think there's different reasons for different teams. I think Blackburn, I've got personal reasons. My ex-wife, she's a Blackburn fan. We're still close, we're still good friends. I'm sure we'll have some banter on that, mate. Her family are all Blackburn fans. And also there, we could be looking at a 7,000 away allocation like we did in the FA Cup. I mean, that's going to be, I think I'm right in saying New Year's Day when we go there, which I mean, that would be...
You're right, yes. New Year's Day.
Absolutely incredible. New Year's Day away at Blackburn. But also, mate, I don't know about you. I'm looking at every single fixture and I've got 2 trains of thought on it. It's a bit daunting because you look at the names and you're like, oh my God, most of these teams, well, almost all of these teams are ex-Prem teams. I think every one of them near enough, apart from maybe Oxford. And then the other way of looking at it, so you're thinking, oh Christ, they're going to be tough games. The other way of looking at it is, for us Wrexham fans, it's going to be like a cup final for us every single game. It's going to be so special. And I just hope, mate, and my biggest hope for this season, because to me, I think we are going to lose 2 or 3 games in a row at times, in my opinion. It might sound pessimistic to some. I don't think that's pessimistic. That's realistic. I think we're going to lose, a couple of games. As long as the fans stay with us, stick with us, because there unfortunately is a new, well, not unfortunately, but there's a new breed of fans who aren't used to losing. It's going to be interesting to see how they react, mate.
Listen, I think the old fans, they don't like it either, do they? I've seen people turn very quickly.
Yeah.
When things are going wrong. These bad runs we have, usually every January, I've seen people turn quite quickly when it's gone a bit tough. But
I think we've always done that, haven't we? We've always had that element in the fan base. I think, going back to, I remember my Tide telling me, my Tide was the guy who got me into Wrexham as a youngster, and I remember him telling me in the late 70s, before they eventually did get promotion, they all used to say in the stands, they don't want to go up, and all this. And little did we realise those were the glory days, and they were still moaning. So we've always had that element. But listen, we're very lucky to be where we are.
Yeah, and I think going back to what you said, I think mid-table would be very nice. I've worked out 60 points should be the target, and that would have got us 12th last year. And I think that gives us room. That means we're comfortable.
Yeah.
55 points you do with 52, but 60 points means we're comfortable. That's quite basic. 15 wins, 15 draws, 16 defeats. We could lose 16 games and be well safe. That just puts things in perspective. Don't panic if things go wrong.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna lose more than 10 games. That's almost certain for me. Yeah. We might even lose nearly 20. But I honestly, hand on heart, don't see us struggling too much. I don't think. I really hope I'm right. And I don't like sort of being a bit out. I don't like being outlandish with our predictions for Wrexham. But I don't see us in a relegation battle. I just don't. But for me, what you're saying there, mate, I think 15 wins, 15 draws, 60 points. I would bite your hand off that. I'd be over the moon. And one thing is for sure, mate, no matter what happens this year, we're going to have some really, really special days out.
Yeah. Going back to the opening fixtures, I've done Oxford a disservice here because I've got a tough first 11 up to Oxford. But when you have a look, the first 5 was Southampton, West Brom, Sheffield Wednesday, Millwall, QPR.
Yeah.
Those are big, big clubs. September the 30th, Leicester.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important that we do sort of just stick with it, be realistic, and enjoy it. You can look at it both ways. That's pretty daunting, but it's really exciting as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, man, it's so exciting. And I tell you, just looking at the fixtures there, you're looking through. What I did when I first glanced over the fixtures today is I looked at the first month and I go, ooh, that's a tough first month. And I thought, surely it gets easier in September. It doesn't. It doesn't get easier in October. It doesn't get easier in November. But this is where we are. This is what we want. This is what you want. A cup final every single week. You just enjoy it. We should enjoy it. If we're struggling, that's gonna sort of stop our momentum a little bit, because the trajectory's only been going one way for the last 4 years, really. But that said, mate, even if we do find ourselves in a bit of a relegation battle, you've got to still enjoy it. Like, you've got to realise, give me a relegation battle here, the mid-table in non-league for 10 years or whatever it was. We were in non-league for so long without even a sniff of promotion. Christ, you don't realise how grim those days are until you look back. And vice versa, you don't know how lucky you are until you put yourself back where we were. So now, listen, I'm going to enjoy every single game. And the other thing as well is, there are a couple of moments last year. We could talk to death about, some of the tactics and, parky ball, as we call it. It was, sometimes it wasn't easy on the eye. I tell you what, I don't care. I don't care if we watch the worst football known to man this year. I really don't. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy being in all those grounds, ticking off some grounds that I never thought I'd go to. Mate, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over, but I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
And, it's been my dream to see Wrexham play at a level that I know we've always, as a club and a fan base and everything else, and North Wales as a whole, I've always felt if we could light the spark, I think Avron Griffiths said that in the 70s, if we could light the fires, North Wales will come with us, and that's what's happened, mate. I'm still shaking, mate.
43 years since being in the second division. 43 years since it's been in the second division. The year I was born, I believe, or the year after I was born. So I'll be 43 this year. But but they've always been in the club.
Hell of a paper round you had, mate. Where was your paper round?
Oh, I know, bloody hell. I feel it. Trust me. It feels worse than it looks. Trust me. But going back to what you said, we've always been an established Football League club for so long. And it would be good if we could just consolidate that. But the landscape has changed now. People do want more. You think, well, look where we come from. Look what we had 15 years of non-league football. With the investments, with the success, with the ambition, the goals have changed now.
Yeah, they have. And I think it's natural for any club that gets to the Championship. They're always going to be looking to get up into that Premier League. That's just natural. That's just the way it's going to be. It's always going to be the same for any club. That's the dream. I think, the odd person, maybe I've said it in the past, but I've never meant it. You say, well, I don't know if I want Premier League. I really want Premier League, but I want us, if we do get to that Premier League, and it is an if, by the way, it's not a when, it's an if. I always said the Championship would be a when. I always said that. The Premier League's an if, but I want us, if we get there, I want us to make the best possible fist of it. For me, I don't think we can do that by going straight up this year. I don't think we're going to go up this year. I really, really don't. I think some people need to calm down. I understand, the ambition and the optimism, of course. And as a football fan, that's what it's about. You don't dream of finishing 12th, do you? But let's calm down just a touch and enjoy this for what it is. And then let's go for it next year. That's the way I see it, mate.
But it's all happened so quickly, hasn't it? How has it happened? How has this takeover been so successful so quickly? Apart from that first half of season when they missed out on the playoffs, when they brought Parky in and really invested for 4 great seasons and 3 promotions in a row.
Yeah, I think feel-good factor is a massive thing as well. I think one word in football I always think is absolutely everything. It's trajectory. You've seen it with big clubs. It's happened at Leeds United. It's happened at Sunderland. Massive clubs where people have found it very difficult to halt a negative trajectory. On the flip side, it's very difficult to stop a club like Wrexham on an upwards trajectory. In many ways, it's only us that can stop ourselves, really. But I think one thing that's been very, very sensible, and I think I've been guilty of doubting Phil Parkinson, mate. I've doubted him. I said a couple of years ago, I didn't think he would be the man to take us into the Championship. I'm so glad I was wrong. This is the next one. I'm going to doubt him again purely for superstitious reasons, and I hope he just doubts me again. Can Parky get us there? I don't know. We're at a really serious level now. He's a guy who knows how to get promoted, but he's a guy who's never made that next one up. So that's tricky. But yeah, trajectory is everything, mate. And in terms of the takeover, everything, mate. Just getting more eyes on the club for me. And another thing on a slightly separate note. When I was sort of like growing up as a young kid, early teen. Well, no, I was probably 9 or 10 when I first started going to Wrexham regularly. From Denby, quite often struggled to give away a ticket for free. There was always a sleeping fan base in Denby, Ruthin, St Asaph, those sort of areas. But now, mate, honest to God, you see as many Wrexham shirts as you do Man United or Liverpool. And I'm serious, they're everywhere. Wrexham shirts are everywhere. And things have changed so quickly. And again, it's not just, you can't just paint it as glory fans. You can't just say that. There's an element of that. I'm not going to deny it. But the other thing is, people have always wanted to get behind Wrexham. But, how are you going to try and convince a young kid to go and watch Bromley in front of 3,000 fans? I used to do it, of course. But now you're looking at, a whole generation of young fans and the next generation as well because of what's happened in the last few years. North Wales is red, and it's not Liverpool or Man United red anymore. It's Wrexham.
This is going to stay like this for a long time. They just opened. They're working on the new store, aren't they? That's going to open soon. Do you think the demand for that store will stay? Will it increase? Is there a danger it could sort of retract a bit?
Well, of course there's that danger. Listen, I always feel like you have to have. I look at Cardiff and Swansea. Their fans, by the way, I've got a lot of friends who support those clubs. Their fans have got very short memories. They're sort of having a pop at us and things like that. I remember Cardiff and Swansea struggling to get 5,000 through the gate. So let's not pretend they've always been these massive clubs that they find themselves today. But I feel what they've done well, they've had a period of success over 5, 6, 7 years. You can't just have 1 or 2 seasons. You have to have a sustained period. And that sort of buys the loyalty of fans, if you like. Not buy, that's probably a poor way of putting it, but the loyalty comes over a period of time, not just 1 or 2 good seasons. So we've got to have, we've got to enjoy some success in the Championship and maybe even push a little bit higher to keep these lads on board, because floating fans will always disappear when the going gets bad. But fans will stay with you if you have that golden era, if you like. Like I say, in the, you saw what happened with us. Well, me and you didn't, but, a lot of people slightly older than us, mate, they'll remember the late 70s and early 80s where we had this amazing team. Yeah. But 2-3 years after that, it was only a 4-year period we were in the Championship then. Mm-hmm. After getting relegated from the Championship, we went down again, 2 relegations in a row, classic Wrexham. And then our crowds went down to 1,000. So, listen, we've always had that little bit of fickleness there. We've got to make sure now that we have this sustained period, mate. That's key for me. And then we will keep North Wales, and North Wales will be Wrexham red.
Definitely. Going back to the takeover, what was your reaction when you heard Ryan Reynolds was interested? What was your initial reaction? Was it wow? Was it caution? Was it, what was your reaction?
I was like, oh, right, just another day in Wrexham. It was great, mate. It was absolutely. Do you know what, though? I don't know if you remember the sort of build-up to them announcing who it was. But there was whispers about all sorts. People were sort of trying to link people. Russell Crowe was a big name that was mentioned. Yeah. Russell Crowe with his links to, I think, Pennakai or Johnstown or something, I think.
I think. Is it, point. There you go. Maybe something tells me. I don't know. Might be wrong.
He used to work in Village Bakery before Gladiator, I think. But I mean, there was all these names, mate. There was different people, all sorts of people. Funnily enough, Hugh Jackman was one that was mentioned, which, he's obviously got links to us now being mates with Ryan Reynolds. But, mate, that period was crazy. And I'll never forget the Zoom call, the famous Zoom call. Whisper it quietly, but someone... I don't think I was a WST member at the time. Anyway, someone shared a link with me, and I watched it on the dodgy stream. So keep your mouth shut. But yeah, that famous Zoom call, incredible times, man. Just remember those words. Always beat Chester. I love that.
They sold it so well, didn't they? And they stuck to that vision. They stuck to every word, which was perhaps always the danger. Would they recognise what they were getting involved in? Is it all just showbiz? Because I believe, I might be wrong, but I truly believe the documentary was the start of it. That was the initial project. Let's buy a football club, film us running a football club, see what the entertainment is. It was an entertainment project, but then came much bigger. They realised what they were getting involved with, what club they were getting involved with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the first few months. That joined Wrexham, they said all the right things, but I believe them. But part of me, I suppose it's just it's this muscle memory of thinking everything with Wrexham is going to turn to shit eventually. It's just the way I see it, But my point being, they were saying all the right things, but I had to pinch myself and say, listen, these guys are actors. They're going to say the right things. They know how to woo us, but. I think maybe there was an element of that. I'm not saying they were being disingenuous. I'm not saying that at all. But I think maybe there's an element of that. But I mean, there's just no doubt. You can be the best actor in the world. You could be Jack Nicholson, but you could not fake how these guys feel about Wrexham. You couldn't, because it is genuine, and the emotion is genuine. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It started with the documentary. That was the plan, I believe. I think they definitely wanted I hate the term project, but a project as well. But mate, I mean, what it's turned into, in their wildest dreams, they couldn't have imagined where we'd be now. I don't think, anyway. And I love the fact I've got to shameless name drop. I've got to know Humphrey Carr really well, and I always, anytime I talk Wrexham, I've got to give him a shout. This bloke, he's one of the best blokes I've ever met. Honest to God, what you see is what you get with Humphrey. Such a good guy. But he has got that classic, again, I hate the term British, being a Welsh nationalist, but he's got this classic sort of British mentality, mate, where he's like, let's calm it down. Yeah, where Ryan and Rob are like, let's win the Champions League. He's like, calm down. But I think even Humphrey himself would be, he'd have to admit, it's took him by surprise.
Well, I believe he was the driving force in choosing Wrexham in the end. He was given the job of identifying clubs to approach.
Yeah, I believe Hartlepool was one they looked at. I genuinely believe them, though, when I think that Wrexham was their first choice. I think they probably had 3 or 4 clubs on their radar, maybe. But I genuinely believe, because they would have done their homework. They would have looked at catchment area. Hartlepool hasn't got the catchment area that Wrexham's got. There's generally no club. Even back then, there was no club outside the Championship with a catchment area like ours. I genuinely believe that, and it's proven right. I mean, you just can't get a ticket. You can't get people always moaning to me, I can't get a ticket. I have to. I'm thinking in the back of my head, I used to offer you free tickets like 10 years ago. But yeah, and I genuinely believe we were their first choice from the get-go, mate.
So it was always worth the risk. You think, whatever happened, the exposure, however long it lasted, it was always worth giving it a go.
I don't think, from our perspective as fans and the supporters trust as well, and people who want the best for Wrexham and did do before the takeover, I don't think there was a risk, mate. I tell you why. I think that's a bit of a foolish thing to say, maybe because of what's happened in the past. We had Hamilton, and then we thought Jeff Moss was the White Knight, and that was naive of us to think. But what I would say was, because of their elevated profile, I don't think they would have negative publicity for them in terms of running a football club that would have really harmed them. I really don't think that would have gone well for them. So I sort of looked at it and went, I was thinking worst case scenario, they get to League One, they leave us, and we have to go back to being fans. League's better off than what we were. So it's and yeah, as
you're freezing again, Tommy. Oh, he's gone.
Shit, I'm back here. Sorry,
he's back. He's back. He's back with us.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, so I don't know where did you hear? Where did you hear me speak to then?
Yeah. But yeah, I think for what they did do, the people they brought on board, with knowledge of the game and how to run up from day one, they knew what they didn't know, and the team they assembled behind the scenes has been exceptional.
Well, one of the most sensible appointments, I've got to say, and I wasn't happy with the appointment at the time, was Sean Harvey. What I mean by that is Sean Harvey came with a bit of baggage, but what they did well, and I hope they don't think negatively of me for saying this, but what they did well was they needed someone to maybe take the flak if there was a couple of slightly unpopular decisions. And what I mean by that was that Sean Harvey was a guy. I've got to give him credit for this. He's anywhere he's been, he does not care about being popular, but he's also a guy that gets stuff done. This guy gets shit done, and he's done a fantastic job actually. And I've got to say that. And I never thought I'd say that because he was a bit of a Rottweiler. I've when I was working for the paper and stuff, I had a few dealings with him, but I don't think he'd mind me. Well, maybe he would, but I don't care really. But he's not the warmest person in the world to deal with. But the guy gets shit done. And,
that's what he needs.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've got no issue with that. Listen, what would you prefer? Someone who's really, really polite but completely inept? No, thank you. Give me a Sean Harvey who gets shit done. He's an intelligent bloke, and I think. The clubs he's been at in the past, perhaps he's made a lot. He probably has made mistakes from what I've read, but also he's come into us. He's clearly learned from other clubs he's been at, and this was a different role to anything he's ever done as well. I'm not going to use the term fall guy, but I mean sometimes if there was an unpopular decision to be made, and rightly so, the flak would never have been aimed at Ryan and Rob. And it's worked so well. I think just the dynamic, and I think Les Reed doing what he does in the background. I think his role's probably understated. We don't hear a lot of him, but that's fine. We don't need to hear a lot from Les Reed. He does what he does. Clearly, he's been there since day dot, since the takeover. So clearly, he's doing a fantastic job. And but I mean, the less said about Fleur Robinson, the better. That's the only thing I'll say.
Yeah. Well, I think I've heard rumours, I've heard stuff, but I think she came in with good knowledge. She served a purpose. They were starting out. She was a good appointment from the beginning to get things up and running. But
apparently she kept the cabin really clean and tidy. So that's a terrible comment. I should delete that. But
it showed their intent, though. It showed their intent to get these established, experienced, CEOs and chief executives and stuff like that. They were going to handle the publicity. They were going to do they knew their position, and they brought in experienced people behind the scenes to run the club.
No, 100%. My issue with Fleur, I just say it. There was a lot of things going on in terms of. I won't go too deep into it, but there was a lot of the banning orders were really, really harsh. I'm not going to mention individual cases; that wouldn't be fair to the individuals involved. But some friends were on the receiving end, and I can tell you now they did next to nothing. I'm not talking about fighting. I'm not talking about anything to that extent. I'm talking about, and I just feel. There was no need to do that. And it was putting a bit of a cloud over the club, and people were getting really, really fed up of good, long-serving fans being treated pretty despicably because of this one person. But I'm not going to go any deeper than that. I just that's the reason why I sort of hold a bit of a sort of grudge against her. But you know what? She had her plus points as well. Yeah, I'm not going to go.
Well, you know more than me. I've heard stories, and I've heard a couple of stories. You know more than me. What do you think? Is that just who she is, how she operates, or was there a desire to really take on this job? It was an important job, the pressure, responsibility. Was she trying to put her foot down and really professionalize the club, or was that just how she operates? Or was it the nature of this particular job that she felt she had to be it this way?
It's a tricky one, mate. I'm going to stick my neck out on the line. I think in terms of the banning order, I think it's to justify a job because from what I can gather, and listen, I could be off the mark. I don't think I am. I'm not an arrogant person, as you know, but I don't think I am. I think I'm right from what I hear to people I speak to, etc., etc. But she was taking control of things like that and doing things like that to justify her role and her salary, because some of the important decisions as a CEO, she was not making the big decisions. She was not, and that's not right for a CEO. Another thing I'd say, and I don't want to just slander her. Just she can't defend herself. She's not here. But what I would say is to not go on the documentary. Like, you're the CEO. You should be the focal point. Sean Harvey, to all intents and purposes, was the CEO. And again, Sean's got his negative points, but generally speaking, he's done a really good job. I just can't say too many positive things about Fleur, but that's just my opinion. She's not here to defend herself. I'm sure if she was here, she would defend herself. She'd probably tell me to piss off. I'm very used to that. It's usually after I'm drunk in the turf. Wayne tells me to piss off out the door. But no, that's my take on it, mate. And I've got to speak my mind on it.
That's fair enough. Go for it. But do you think this could ever be replicated? Is there now going to be clubs and entertainers and showbiz people and celebrities who will try and recreate this? Is that a day this will never be recreated?
I think you've already seen it to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
I think you've already seen it to a certain extent. You've got your likes of there was rumours about Tranmere, haven't you? Different clubs. I can see it definitely 100%. I'm just pleased that we were the first ones, because what will happen now is you might see a rush to buy lower league clubs. I mean, these actors haven't got oil money, have they? And despite what Carlisle fans will maybe tell you, but yeah, they haven't got oil money. They haven't got Qatar, Dubai, Abu Dhabi money. But yeah, I think you'll look at what's happened with us, and people go, "Well, I fancy a bit of that." The one thing I would say is the reason why Rob and Ryan, right? This is why they've done such an incredible job. You look at the amount of money Gary Neville and the class of '92, as they're called, the amount of money they've got, right? And they've invested in Salford, but also don't forget, they've probably invested similar amounts of money into Salford, or maybe even more. Maybe not now, but when we were both in League Two, they probably invest more in Salford than Ryan and Rob had into Wrexham. The impressive thing about Ryan and Rob, mate, they haven't got the football expertise that Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, all these guys with all this wealth of knowledge, and they can't get them out of League Two. Now, don't get me wrong, they haven't got the fan base we've got, but don't underestimate just what an incredible bit of work Ryan and Rob. Okay, Ryan and Rob might not be making football decisions every minute of every weekday, but they've chosen the people to put in the right positions. It's absolutely incredible what they've done, and you can't just do it with money. You have to have something about you. You can't just say money, because Salford approved it. You can't just throw money at it.
I think Salford restructured now, haven't they? The ownership
they've probably looked at what's happened with us and gone, we have to move to a similar model as Wrexham, because it hasn't worked for them. They've got to a certain point, and you've got to look at it. If you were a Salford fan years ago, in fact, it's probably a slightly different thing, Carl, I would say, because with Salford, you're probably you're probably looking at a lot of their original fans probably don't support the club anymore, because they probably don't like what it's become. It's a different animal. But Yeah, mate, I just can't. I can't believe how well our lads have done in charge. And when you compare to the class of '92.
That was an interesting point about Salford. That's like going back to the risk of selling out Wrexham. Is that why you think a small percentage voted no on the takeover? Were they scared of
Yeah,
losing heart and soul?
yeah, and I think I spoke about muscle memory before. I think I'm not going to mention names, but a couple of people who I know very well and respect. I've got massive respect for these guys. I don't agree with their rationale. But I do completely understand where they're coming from. It was muscle memory after Hamilton and Moss, etc., etc. I completely get it, and I understand it, and this is why I get very, very frustrated. You see, I'm not going to say new fans, but I'm going to say people who perhaps haven't always been diehards, who say things like, "Oh, maybe we should move away from the racecourse." No. The racecourse is our home. We don't need to either. We don't need, in my opinion, we don't need a 35,000 seater stadium. I don't think we ever will, if I'm being honest. That's not pessimistic. That's just realistic. I've people laugh at me in a couple of the WhatsApp groups. Tim Edwards from Fearless always takes the piss out of me because I always mention the 22,000 figure. I think a 22,000 seater stadium for Wrexham is fantastic. That'd be amazing, and that'd be for me enough, because you've got to remember where we've come from, and you've got to remember that. I look at, it's a very different scenario, but do you remember Darlington, where they built that massive stadium, and they went down the leagues, and then they had this massive stadium that was basically sitting there empty, like something off 28 Days Later. You know what I mean? Like post-apocalyptic.
Well, I'm sure we'll see a lot of that this year, to be fair. Some of these big stadiums obviously are not being filled.
Yeah, and you lose your soul of the club, mate. You lose your soul of the club. We have to remember that there's, I pray to God that never happened. I'm an atheist as well, but I pray to God it never happened. But there is a scenario where we drop a couple of leagues. Now, we're not filling a 22,000 seater stadium if we get 2 relegations in a row, for example, which could happen. We're not filling a 22,000 stadium on a equal. Yeah, for me, let's be realistic as well. Let's not run before we can walk, if that's the right term. But yeah, 22,000 for me, perfect.
Could it be utilised for other things? Could we?
Yeah, of course, yeah, of course. I think it should be. I think the racecourse should always host other events and things like that. Diversify it, if you use that term. Yeah, I think so, mate. But again, I just don't want us to. You do lose your soul if you go too big too quick. You lose your soul, and it's no good to anyone, mate. I don't want to see that happen to Wrexham. I love the racecourse, and I hope we never play anywhere else. If let's not be silly about it. If we had, let's say, for example, in a crazy world, that we become a top 10 Premier League side, I'm laughing just thinking about it. But let's say that happens, right? And we're filling our potential 22,000 seat stadium week in, week out, every week, and we're top 10 for every year for 5 years. Then maybe there's a need to go bigger. Maybe there's a need to move. But when we're talking now about leaving the racecourse and talking about 35,000 seat stadiums, I think we need to calm down.
How big can it be extended to in the current location? How much can we extend the racecourse?
I couldn't give you exact figure, but I'm pretty sure Ryan and Rob quoted as saying we can do 32,000, at the race. I'm pretty sure they've said that, which again, that's pie in the sky, mate. That's miles off. Those sort of numbers are miles off. They really are. But yeah, but why would you need any more than that? We're never going to be an Arsenal, are we? Or we're never going to be an Anfield, we're never going to be that, are we? And I think it's silly to suggest that we are. I don't like not being optimistic, but I just feel like I
it's
love.
It's been a job getting an extra 5,000 in, isn't it? This cop's taking a while. This cop is taking a while, isn't it? Christ, can't even get that up at the moment.
Oh, mate, honest to God,
will it be up for this time next year? Do you think? Are they going to do it?
Well, it's got to be for the Euros, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly,
We've got it. That's the main thing. Yeah, I think so, mate. I think we're in business now. We're going to do it. It's just a shame, though, mate, isn't it? It's, you can't have everything, and it's not a shame. We're in the Championship, but how amazing would it be to go into the Championship, the 16th? I mean, next season, Championship again, hopefully. 16,000 seater racecourse. That'll be something special, mate. I can't wait for that.
The numbers, that temporary stand was a great move, wasn't it? In the end, it was smart to business. I think it made the atmosphere much more impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I went in there a couple of times. Obviously, because there's no roof, the atmosphere is never going to be as loud as the other three stands. We know that, but it did add something. It was definitely better than an open end, mate.
Of course, yes.
Do you know what though, mate? It was not emotional, but seeing the Cop demolished, though, I loved that stand because that's where I cut my teeth as a Wrexham fan. Me and my tie would stand there, Jacko, people like that, mate. Those honestly, if I could go back to any moment in my life, it would be probably. Do you know what? Getting promotion against Cambridge 2003 in the Cop, just special, just amazing.
But it was so sad just to see it left. And we thought, well, that's it. It's never, ever going to be revitalized. It was just rotted. It was so sad to see it just left like that with no real hope.
Yeah, see it derelict, mate. It was horrible. And for 15 years, but there was nothing we could do. The WST didn't have the sort of money that we needed to. And do you know what, mate? I think it would have stayed empty like that for another 10 years, if not more, if Ryan and Robin had come in and. It was really sad, mate. But listen, this is why, we all get a bit emotional when we get a bit of success because we remember that these bastards tried to kill us. Two sets of owners tried to kill us, and they didn't manage it because of the will of the people of Wrexham and the fan base.
That was some fight back, wasn't it? That was some fight back. I don't know
if you know the song. I've got to give it a shout out as well. When I go in the shower in the morning, I listen to Hamilton Scum by the Declan Swans. I proper get the fist. It gets me ready for the day, when I think of all the owners and stuff like that. That song gets me going.
The Mill Road stand, this picture has been vandalised. They had a picture of him in the Mill Road stand and someone's, give it the deserved treatment.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Do you remember that day when he went walking on the Cop? I thought he was going to. I honestly thought he was going to get lynched. I don't know what.
Ridiculous thing to do, wasn't it? To be fair,
this is how much of a clown he was, and going back to bad owners, the only difference between him in terms of the level of being an absolute crook, the only difference between him and Moss was intelligent. It's as simple as that. And unfortunately, Moss got away with it, and sad. But they are. It's we saved the club, and we have to forget stuff like remember it, but also move on from it.
I spoke to Spencer Harris about this. At the time when they were trying to take over the club, there was still lots of interest. What was it? Stephanie Booth was there. So there's always been people lurking around. There's always been people with an interest, believing they can either rip off the club or revitalize it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to speak ill of the dead. Stephanie Booth was doing it for publicity. I don't think that's an unfair comment. Again, she's not here to defend herself, so I won't speak any further on that. But people were just using Wrexham to their own ends, and it wasn't just her. Colin Poole was another example, I believe.
Yeah.
Paul Butty Vance. I remember his name just because it sounds like Butty Van. Evening, Krista Berger. But and Wayne. But it's there was just a million different. What was his name? Steve Cleave from King's Lynn. He went to King's Lynn.
Dracula. Yes, yeah.
Mate,
he's still pissed off about that. I think he's still bitter about that.
Yeah. Well, I believe he's a reform councillor now, so he's found his natural home. I'm not going to go into politics. But listen, we had a rough time with these dickheads. Hey, we're here. Look at us. It's unbelievable. Am I heat, mate?
Do you think it would have been sold by now? Do you think the WST would have carried on running the club, or do you think eventually somebody would have sold? Because there was always that that backlash, I think, of lack of funds, lack of ambition, and that season of COVID when really, really close to being relegated, there was always that just frustration that more investments.
Yeah, it was really. Do you know what? I feel for the guys involved in the supporters trust. Now, I think everyone involved in the supporters trust in whatever capacity. I don't doubt for 1 minute anyone involved there, absolutely none of them, wanted anything but the very best for Wrexham Football Club. Right? That's what's that. Were mistakes made? I think everyone would admit they were, but I mean that's natural, you know. But could you run a club? Could I run a club? You know, how difficult is it to run a football club alongside? By the way, free of charge. They might get a ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say that.
Free of charge after working. You know, it's often some individuals are working 12-hour days in their day job and then going and having meetings at the club. Listen, how they kept their marriages going more than anything. And, you know, no matter what you say, I can understand the frustration. We all just want the best. And you know what? I reckon everyone involved understood the fans' frustration. We were all there, and you know, some of the managerial appointments were dreadful. I don't think it'd be fair to mention them, but we know some of the appointments were so bad. But I tell you something, I take my hat off to him, and you know, I think it's time now. You know, I think it's time now that we all move on from that, and you know, you should always thank anyone who does anything for our club for free and does their very, very best, whether they make mistakes or not. Mistakes are human nature, but you know, hey, listen, they did their best, and for a lot of the time, they did a cracking job in terms on the financial side. The WST did some fantastic work. It's just that some of the decision making on the football side left a lot to be desired. But you know, here we are, and if we would have made better decisions in 2015, in 2017, we might not be sitting here now, mate, because we might have gone up a couple of times with better decisions, and then Ryan and Rob don't come in. So you know, listen, that's a
very grateful for how it all works out in the end, doesn't it? Even if it's
what's that film? It's Sliding Doors, and what's the other film? The Butterfly Effect as well, isn't it? The other one. But
what they've done, which is very smart, I appreciate it more now, is bringing in the Allen family a lot earlier. They brought in other investors a lot earlier than I expected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was timely for me, mate. I think we're at a level now where Ryan and Rob money isn't enough to compete. No, sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. It's enough to compete, but it's not enough to excel. But thankfully now, Ryan and Rob, I'm not downplaying their role going forward or anything like that, but I'd see them taking more of a figurehead role rather than bankrolling the club. I think the Allen family are going to be fantastic for us. And by the way, been lucky. I wouldn't say I know the guy at all, but I've been lucky enough to say hello, have a very brief chat. They're good people. You can tell that they're good people, and straight away they've bought into it, into what we are, what we're becoming, and you know, the one thing I always say as well is just understand our history, and I'm not just talking about the club. I'm talking about North Wales. I'm talking about things like the Gresford Miners. The miners' centre and things like that. These guys, they've put roots down in Wrexham, and they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So it's not just money, mate. It's not just money. These guys are really, really doing wonderful things for us.
Yeah. You can see how much they care. I'm sure they wouldn't have brought them on board if they didn't get that from them.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And these, I believe they've got Celtic sort of links as well. I think they've got Welsh links, haven't they? The Allen family. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that, but certainly Celtic links of some description. So they sort of get it as well, and to a certain extent. And yeah, listen, I do see them. I think everything's going quite well. Don't account your chickens in business. In football, things can change very, very quickly. But I'm sure the good thing is, you've got almost like some buffers in the sense, you've got Humphrey who, Humphrey's, there's been some whispers that Humphrey maybe one day, well, I'm sure he will one day step away, but that'll be a very sad day for me when Humphrey leaves the club, because he's been, you can't overstate what this guy's done. And I'll tell you another thing about Humphrey. he's a guy. I'm sure he won't just sort of mind me saying it's no secret. He's a well-off fella. He's not he's not a poor fella. But he goes wandering through the markets in Wrexham, goes through the butcher's market. He goes to T Pawb, and he enjoys what Wrexham is. He loves Wrexham. He loves the people, and he's wandering around. I see him, buying little bits and bobs from, he might buy some chicken or whatever from what's it called, Wing Kings or whatever, if that's still going on.
Yeah.
I tell you, the amount of times I've seen him wandering through Wrexham having a look, and he wants to immerse himself in what Wrexham is, because he wants to know what makes Wrexham tick. Well, he doesn't need to know anymore. He knows now. He's one of us. He's a Wrexhamite. I'm not from Wrexham. I'm a Denby boy, but it's the same principle, really. I just think what he's done, mate, and he will relay a lot of stuff about what happens on the ground, if you like, in Wrexham, back to Ryan and Rob, and they've got their finger on the pulse, these guys.
Yeah, they've all made the effort, haven't they? And they genuinely want to get involved. It's genuine.
Yeah. Oh,
they're not just taking a back seat and chipping in when they need to. They're really getting involved and getting their hands dirty.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, mate. I do think Wrexham's quite a unique place in many ways. You could argue it's quite similar to a lot of post-industrial towns, etc. But you add the Welsh aspect as well. It's we're quite unique here in North Wales, I think, and they've tapped into that. And I, as a Welsh speaker myself, I love what they've done with the language and stuff as well. That's what I love to see. And what they've probably done more for the language than anyone else in the last 30, 40 years, to be honest.
See, I'm not fluent in Welsh. I wish I tried harder when I was younger. I regret it now. I'm fluent in double Dutch. That's about it,
Mate, to be honest with you, without going sort of too deep into it, it's not anyone's fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's not anyone's fault that they can't speak Welsh. It's the education system that's failed us. It's
my behavioural system, I think.
I struggle with my English most of the time. So yeah.
No, but I think that even for people who live in Wrexham and North Wales and Wales, this story has opened up more. I mean, it's allowed certainly me and others perhaps to look more at our history where we perhaps ignored it. And I'm finding out new stuff. And I'm from Rustutland. We've got Bersham Colliery there. I grew up near there, and Irving Hall's down the road. So it's a lot of it is around us, but there's so much more.
Yeah.
And I think even I want to know more and more, educate myself further. I think a lot of people are doing that now.
Yeah, 100%. You look at stuff on the documentary. They're not paying lip service. They want to broadcast this, and it's a USP as well. To use a horrible business term, it is. That's our USP is the Welsh language, Welsh culture. We're one of only 4 football league clubs in Wales. We've got to use that USP, and thankfully we have. I like some of the Welsh branding. So Ryan on. One of the Men in Blazers videos, not one that we did, but one that Rog did with him. He's wearing Club Peldroid Wrexham. Ryan Reynolds wearing something with the Welsh language on a Twitter. It is incredible. That's another, another thing that 5 years ago you think, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, well, certainly the international audience being introduced to something that they would not have been aware of. Wales, it's in England, isn't it? All that cliches, they would not have had any idea the history on what existed.
No, 100%, mate. I'm sure you've been the same as me. Whenever I've been abroad, somewhere like Greece or whatever, which I find incredible, really. Like it is sort of poor from their perspective, but you'd go places in Europe, not even 2-hour flight away, and they'd never heard of Wales. I'm like, how have you not heard of us? I've heard of Andorra, for example. That's a tiny little place, but I'd get really frustrated, and but everyone. I've always said the Irish go somewhere, they plant a flag. The Scottish go somewhere, they plant a flag. The Welsh go somewhere and they just assimilate. And we're far too polite at times, and thankfully it's took some American guys and a Canadian to help us be more confident in our culture and stuff, I think.
Yeah, I think again it's going to get bigger and better. It's only going to get bigger from here. I think something special is happening. Listen, Tommy, this has been brilliant. There's so much more I'd like to talk about. We can go on another 3 hours. This has been fantastic. Before you do go, you'll have to come back because there's so much I want to speak to you about.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, mate. Anytime.
Paul Mullin, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. I think some of the reactions have been a bit over the top, to be honest.
Yeah.
The guy's gone out alone. The one thing I will say, the top line is legend. Absolute Wrexham, bona fide Wrexham legend. Love him. Love the guy. What he's done for us, his goals. We wouldn't be where we are today without him. The next thing I'd say on the flip side slightly, he had, in the first half of last year, he had a fair amount of chances in League One. He did not play well. Okay, he hadn't had the proper full pre-season and things like that, but he was not playing well. He just wasn't. And I'm not saying he's not good enough for League One. I think he'd go to Wigan and do well. I think he can get 15 goals this year for Wigan. Whether we'll see him in a Wrexham shirt again, I'm not too sure. It depends on our trajectory. It depends how well we do. But what I would say is last season, to me, in my opinion, and again, I'll go back to what I said, I love the bloke. He's a legend. But Sam Smith was an upgrade for me. Second half of the season, Sam Smith was an upgrade. Rodriguez wasn't, based on, but Rodriguez has got a little bit of credit in the bank in terms of championship experience. Mullin hasn't got any championship experience, and I think if Mullin was going to play in front of anyone, it'd be Sam Smith, because you're like sort of like for like, if you like, if that makes sense. I think it's best for everyone. I don't think it's any good Mullin sitting on the bench. Clearly, he was unhappy sitting on the bench, and rightfully so. But you can't just play Mullin based on past glories. I think it was the right move for him to go. I just hope that it's not true that Parky and Mullin don't quite see that. They're the rumours, aren't they? But they're the rumours. You're always going to get them rumours. I'd find it quite sad if that was the case, because these are two guys that will, when they do eventually leave the club permanently, these two guys will go. If you're doing a Mount Rushmore in the last 4 years, they're two of the first names on the list, aren't they?
Exactly.
So yeah. Listen. Long story short, mate, I love the guy Mullin. He'll never have to buy a drink again, like Rich Watkins said the other day from the Fat Ball. He'll certainly never have to buy a mixed grill in the Fat Ball, I don't think, again. But I wish him well at Wigan. But some of the reaction, I saw one guy, mate, saying, "Oh, there'll be no one at the racecourse this next year. They'll all be going to watch Wigan." Like, come on, mate, grow up. You know what I mean? But yeah, I wish him all the best, mate.
Yeah, I think his time's probably up, to be fair. Even if he does well at Wigan, stay there then. Don't try and come back and relive what's happened. I think what he's done, he's done. He'll never be forgotten. But I think Wrexham was a club now moving away from him. The injuries were terrible. Missing pre-season. He was unlucky. But again, moving up to the divisions in a harder league, was that inevitable? Could that have always been the case? His form would have dipped anyway.
Yeah. It's tricky, mate. It's really, really tricky. I think we could. To be honest with you, though, let's think about it logically. There's been a lot of people sort of criticising Parky for his decision to let him go out and loan and stuff, which to me is crazy. He wasn't good enough in League One last year. What makes you think he's going to hit the ground running in the Championship, which is, listen, League One to the Championship for me, I think is going to be massive. I think it's a huge jump. There's no guarantee that Sam Smith will be good enough. As much as I really rate him, Ryan Hardy, he's got Championship experience. I think he's going to prove to be a good, solid signing, especially because he scored a reasonable number of goals in a poor Plymouth side. So yeah, for me, Mullin's moving further and further down the pecking order, and it's one of them, mate. But yeah, I'm just excited, mate. I'm excited to see the new signings come in as well.
Hardy for me. Good, not spectacular. It isn't a blockbuster, but it's competent. He's solid. But where do you think we need to improve? What are you looking at?
Do you know what? I hate saying this. Another one. I love the bloke. I love the guy, but he's another year older. He hasn't played in the Championship for a few years. Is James McLean going to be good enough this year? I'm not. And by the way, when I say good enough, he's good enough, but is he good enough for where we want to be heading? My point being, you know, he will do a job for us, but is doing a job enough for us anymore? I'm probably being a bit too harsh on him here. I love him as well, by the way. Absolute, what a bloke. But yeah, I wonder whether that's somewhere. I think I wouldn't mind seeing it. I'm being a bit greedy here. I wouldn't mind seeing another striker coming in. I don't know if we're still a little bit light on the goal side. You know, I know it sounds strange. I don't think many people would say striker after Hardy coming in. But yeah, I just wonder about goal scoring. We struggled for goals last year. Have we got enough goals in the team? Have we got enough goals from midfield? Elliot Lee, is he going to be good enough this year? Jury's out on all these things. But
Yeah,
the only thing I'd say, if we walked into the season now with this squad, I think we just about stay up with this squad.
I agree. I think this squad is good enough. Yes, I completely agree.
I think just about stay up. I think 3 quality first team signings in the spine. I would say. I think we need a centre half, mate. I think Cleworth's not going to be your middle of the 3 centre half. Owen O'Connell wasn't quite good enough. Brent's a good lad. Scar's a good lad as well. Cleworth's for me. Cleworth's first name on the team sheet. Absolutely love him. I think he's top class. But he's not going to play at the spine. He's not going to play in the middle. He plays to the right, doesn't he, or the left, or whatever it is. So yeah, I wonder if we need an upgrade on O'Connell. That's what I would say.
What about Beck? What's the latest on Beck? Is that realistic, do you think? I think Rangers are going for him as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd break my heart to see another Welshman get a Rangers, but yeah, I'd love to see him again. That's one of my own criticisms. I don't want to go too deep on this either, because I remember when we signed a load of Welsh players one summer and we nearly went down. 2006, 2007, it was an absolute disaster. But I think it's a shame we haven't had too many Welsh players. I'd love to see a couple of Welsh players come in. Yeah. I really would. I don't know if Danny Ward would be. I wouldn't say no to Danny Ward, but does he play ahead of Okonkwo? I'm not too sure. But it's not a deal breaker for me. I'd just like to see a couple of Welshmen in the side. But also, I do wonder.
Is it important that we bring them through, Tommy? Is it up to us to try and bring them through as well?
Yeah, the thing, I think what everyone's sort of said is that the training facilities have to be there. We have to get this academy up and running. At this moment in time, mate, that would be one of my major issues that we need to address, is get this academy going. Let's get the youth system properly going, because, we saw a few years back just how fruitful it was for Swansea when they went through the leagues. All these players coming through, and they earned a tidy few quid as well. We used to earn a tidy few quid as well from. Now, in the past, we haven't had the money to scout across North Wales and the northwest of England. We've got the money now. Let's scout. Let's get all the best young talent. Let's have someone at a youth team game in every town in North Wales on a Sunday morning. Let's hoover the best talent. Get them to Wrexham. For me, that's a big thing, and that's where you'll see the Welsh production line coming. You look at the 80s. Some of the best players in the world all came from not all, but three or four world class players were from Northeast Wales. We've got to get back to that, I think, and Wrexham can play a massive part in that.
And just before you go, what about international players? Do we need a good American, a good Canadian? So.
Yeah, there's no harm, is there? 100%. I mean, the great thing, here's another great thing as well. I remember last year having to sort of choose between going to watch Wales against, who were we playing? North Macedonia, I think, or the Stockport game. And in the end, I watched Wrexham Stockport. Wrexham came first on that occasion, but we don't have that problem now, mate. We've got the international breaks off, which is fantastic. The last time we had international breaks off was because we had 4 Trinidad players playing. But yeah, I'd happily see a few international players. I think it'd be great for us, mate. And we're shopping in a different market to what we used to. We used to try and get players who, maybe had a Wales under-21 cap or two. Now we're looking at getting.
But does the motive have to be right? It can't be for marketing purposes and commercial reasons. It has to be for football, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's always that danger you may look to expand commercially and bring on a name who's got that international fan base, that North American fan base, to increase the exposure even more.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm surprised we haven't done more of that, really.
No.
Maybe signing, an Asian player as a description. I am surprised we haven't done more of that. But then, to be fair to Rob and Ryan, I don't think they've ever put any pressure. They've given Parky budget, and Parky signs players for football. Parky's a football man, and that's why the dynamic works. He doesn't care about the commercial aspect. He couldn't care less, I don't think. And rightfully so. He's a football man. I don't think you're going to get, unless they decide, listen, we want to get this guy for commercial aspects. But I don't think they'd ever say that to Parky. And Parky certainly wouldn't be the one to put his neck out and say it, would he?
And the recruitment has been excellent. I must say, from day one, there's always been fantastic recruitment. The right players have been brought in. Very, very few duff signings. And there's always been a step up, isn't there? Certainly in the midfield. Do you think you've got a great midfield to bring someone in who's just that little bit better?
Do you know, and the other thing as well, people say about Parky's recruitment, call it Dad's Army and stuff like that. But the one thing I'd say about his recruitment, the famous, is it the Plonker test that they call it? Parky's Plonker test. It's genius though. Like, the only one. Well, I've met him a couple of times. He's been all right. I've had a beer with him. Ollie Palmer was a bit of a question mark at times. But he's good. He's a good, decent fella to me and stuff, But
I think he contributes so much. He's embedded in history now. Those first couple of seasons, I think.
Yeah. But also, mate, I think going back to the experience aspect, Parky. He knows that when the going gets tough. At the end of the season last year, we had a couple of poor results. That game at Wigan, which was a dreadful game, and we played really badly. You're thinking, oh, have we bottled it here? And then the experience shines through. They don't panic. They go to Blackpool and they win 2-0. And you're like, fantastic, absolutely awesome. And that's what Parky does best. He knows with his experience, lads, they're not going to let him down. They're not going to wilt under the pressure. It's another underrated aspect of his management, mate.
And that start against Charlton, we knew what happened to Wickham. So we had the head start, didn't we, really? But that first 20 minutes, half an hour against Charlton is what we're all desperate for. But they really turned it around, didn't they?
Yeah. And to be honest, mate, we were unlucky to not win away at Charlton. That was a great away game as well. But no, that Charlton home game, mate, you were thinking, oh, it's going to be a tough game. After they went to Wickham and did what they did to Wickham. But we battered them, didn't we? And we steamrolled them. And you're thinking, where's this come from? But the good thing with Parky's Wrexham, I don't think we've ever put in two bad performances in a row. I don't think. We always follow a bad performance with a good result. We always do it. We bounce back, and that's credit to him, mate.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So the championship, optimistic, excited.
Yeah, we're gonna win it, mate.
Great stuff, yes.
No, I'm optimistic, mate. I am optimistic. But if you offer me 12th now, I'd take it all day long. But I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy the roller coaster. I think the pressure's off. We said that last year. I took top 10 last year. Yeah. But no, the pressure's off, mate. And if we get 12th, I think, and we'll have some special away days. We'll have some special days at the racecourse. That'd be fantastic. Get the cop open for a promotion push next year. That's the dream, baby.
May the 2nd, last game, Middlesbrough home. Now that's what a game. What a team. Look at the names, Tommy. Look at the names we've been talking about.
Mate, some of these names, man. And the thing is, there's no fear because you play the team, not the name. And I think the names can look daunting, but if you actually look at their squads, I don't think we've got that much to be, with some of them. I think, listen, we might have a couple of hide-ins this year. Let's be honest about it. But let's enjoy the ride. Let's not get on their backs. Stick behind them, and we're going to have a special season.
Well, look what we did last year. Above Bolton, above Charlton, above Reading. Who would have thought that? Brilliant stuff. Absolutely flying. And
incredible.
It's going to be some season that we've got to enjoy, and we've got to enjoy it and just love every minute of it. Tommy, thank you so much for this. I really do appreciate it. You've been fantastic. So much more I'd love to talk about. Do come back. Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Top man, mate. Cheers. Anytime.